4 friends on a canoe trip vanish under a hovering light, missing time, hypnosis, and matching memories of alien experimentation. This is the true reporting of the Allagash Alien Abductions, and we're going to get into it with our special guest, David Cohn from the Crain Co. podcast. Does he believe? And is this mostly true? We're going to find out. Welcome to another episode of Mostly True Alien Stories.
They're coming.
UFO sightings. Many Americans have wondered about the dangers of unknown objects.
Scientists in Mexico pulling back the curtain. We need to save ourselves.
Welcome to Mostly True Alien Stories, where we explore the most compelling true reportings of an alien encounters in history and determine whether they are mostly true or not. I'm Neal Girandola, along with Andrew Triana, and we are glad you're here. So make sure you subscribe, tell your friends all about us. Today's story is one of the most talked about multi-witness abduction cases of all time, one that started with a canoe trip in the Maine wilderness and ended with years of missing memories that would eventually come flooding back under hypnosis. So if you're new to this podcast, here's how it works. I'm going to share an alien encounter, true reporting, and then we're going to break it down. We're going to analyze the details, and we're going to give our take on whether this one deserves to land in the Mostly True column or not. And joining Andrew and I today with his own take on today's episode is a sports personality for the Daily Wire. He's a songwriter and a former quarterback for the University of Michigan who currently co-hosts the daily sports show Crain Company with Jake and Blaine Crain, and he is set to release a new music album this summer, which was produced by Kent Wells, who's the longtime producer for Dolly Parton. Please welcome my friend David Cohn. What's up, buddy?
Good morning, fellas. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, hey, Dave, I got to get right into it. I haven't seen you in such a long time. I got to ask, because Andrew and I need to know, as before we even get going, do you believe in extraterrestrial life on other planets, or what's your deal?
First of all, yes, thank you for having me. Second of all, it's been way too long, Neal. And the only reason I agreed to even come on here and talk about aliens is because you've been so good to me in the past. Some of my very first professional gigs were because of you. And thank you. I'd love to, catch up with you even outside of this. Believe in extraterrestrial life. That's such a huge question that I feel like should take up the entire podcast episode. So how can I answer that in a way that doesn't waste one?
Yes or no?
But let me preface this with I saw that you gave Matt Walsh a bit of a hard time about aliens and stuff. So what was that all about?
My colleague Matt Walsh allowed me to guest host his show, not knowing really how I felt about aliens or pit bulls for that matter. And so, yes, I trolled him quite frequently when I guest hosted his show last 4th of July for a week, right after the Trump-Biden debate, by the way. Hey, no pressure. You're just going to host Matt Walsh's show the day after that debate. Look, I understand the vastness of the universe. I understand I understand it. How can we even comprehend how big the universe is? How old? 14 billion years? I mean, I don't know what I did 14 minutes ago. I'm just trying to come in here and talk to you guys. So we're carbon-based beings over that much time. Yes, there's probably other life. I don't know if God created other life outside of us in the universe, or if he just allowed the universe to expand and that carbon has turned into other life. Sure. Where I start to have a problem, the issue for me is when extraterrestrials are coming to Earth back and forth, and they're using Earth as a hub, and we're seeing them. And I like my other colleague and friend here, Andrew Clavin, says the aliens are so sophisticated, right, that they can travel light years and get here and run experimentation, but then sometimes they just happen to run out of gas, and their ships are here on Earth. That's the part where I really struggle. And then, some of these stories, like I'm not caught up with the one you're about to share with me. I hope you will convince me. I do like to be entertained, but I couldn't help but catch your guys' last episode on the, where was it in Mississippi?
Pascagoula.
Well, that one was a great episode, guys, by the way. But I'm sitting here listening to these two guys. One's 42 years old. He takes the other one who's 19 years old fishing, and it happens to be in the middle of the night when they're fishing, and one of them is nervous and can't remember anything, and he blacks out, and they saw aliens. I have a hard time, guys. I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, Andrew thought it was something else, a little man-boy love kind of thing happening under the on the Pascagoula River bank.
I think he was warned. I think he was warned not to go fishing with him. Whatever you do, don't go fishing with him.
And Mr. Andrew is on the right track there.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, that's it for today then. That's it. Show's over. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, Andrew is a non-believer, which is what I love. I'm a guy who I'm at the point where I'm hopeful that there's someday I'm just begging to be abducted by an alien at some point.
I thought you had one of them.
Not by aliens.
Not by aliens.
It was a different kind of abduction.
Yeah, it was a blue van.
Yep.
That's a whole different podcast.
Yeah, there was some roofies
really
involved.
is. So
Roofies.
listen, you're when we first met, for our listeners, we met, I don't know, was it 2006? 2000, no, later, a little later, 2009, something like that. But you were
about 2012.
That's right, 2012, and we were creating content for the Division I football programs, all the top 10 football programs, and you were just getting into filmmaking, I believe, at the time, and you were one of the hardest working guys, and I think I even told you that because those days were grueling. It was a lot of work. It was also a lot of fun, but to be in those at the bowl games or be whatever, that exposure to that kind of thing. But you were one of the hardest working guys that I knew, and I mean, you turned around and you're right there. You're right there with the camera. You would do anything. Pick up a camera, you go hang a light. You didn't care. You were doing everything, and I remember thinking that day, this guy he's got something big's gonna happen for you, whether it's in filmmaking or whatever. And what I learned too, just recently, I had no idea that you were a country music singer, that you were right. I knew you played some music. I didn't know you were creating that album. Tell me about that. How did that come about?
Well, first off, thank you for your kind words. Second of all, that was a very pivotal time when you and I met, because I had just gotten done playing Division I football at the University of Michigan, wanted to play in the NFL more than I wanted anything in my life. And when you fall just short of a goal that you've been working towards and your family's been helping work towards for 20 years, it is quite heartbreaking. And there were conversations about, should I get into coaching? My father wanted me to think about going to law school. I saw what video production and filmmaking was and could be, and I'd always loved films, and people liked my sports background sort of right off the bat. And I was able to take to it quickly, because when you're playing quarterback and you have to know every single position on the field, and you have different position groups coming up to you in the heat of battle asking you what they need to do, you have to respond quickly. It was very much like a movie set with different department heads coming up and asking. So that's why when I was meeting you at the ages of 24, 25, 26, I was able to produce some of those. We produced national commercials together, Neal, and I think about the football stuff, but also with the Atlanta Falcons, which they haven't been back to a Super Bowl since you and I produced their hype video. So I'm surprised.
I didn't want to say anything.
That cursed now, right?
Yeah. Thank you for giving me those opportunities, because I was probably far too young to be producing content of that caliber. But you and I were both hungry to make sure that we were making the best content possible. And some people still watch those videos either on my website or online, and they'll reach out to me and say, that they had an impact on them, because I think we made some stuff that was very evergreen. And during that time too, I was starting to learn how to write songs and play music, and sort of all this creativity started pouring out of me when you're not in the daily grueling grind of college football anymore. And I had always loved music. My father and I share a special bond over music, and he's always really liked country music. That's not what I gravitated to when I first started writing songs. It was much more in the Jack Johnson and John Mayer type vibe.
Sure.
Red Hot Chili Peppers, even a little bit, with a hip hop element. But I had always had a deep appreciation for old school country music that my father had grown up listening to, and even folk music, with Bob Dylan and Peter, Paul and Mary and stuff like that. But the older that I've gotten, and everything changed after COVID, Neal. I mean, I was running a small video production company. I was doing well. I had even a couple medical clients when COVID hit. I was just getting married at that time, and I was like, please don't go bankrupt your first year of marriage, just having bought a house, the whole world changing. And fortunately, I had just met Jake and Blaine Crain, who were also dealing with some stuff during COVID, because they were coaching college football. They had an audio only podcast. They wanted to be on video. We got introduced. I'm a video producer and played college football. One thing led to another. Colin Cowherd reached out and asked if we would join his new network, The Volume, and host a college football show for him. And then not long after Ben Shapiro called and said, if we acquired your show, would you move to Nashville? Would you consider covering multiple sports? And, really hammering home on this, men and women's sports issue, which is kind of the closest that we get to the political nature of this company here. When I did move to Nashville, I said, I've written all these songs over the course of my life. The older I get, the more it is kind of steeped in that Americana country type vibe. I'm in Nashville. I should record some more songs. And Mr. Kent Wells agreed to take a listen to some of them, and he listened and called me in the next week, and we met for an hour and talked about it, and he said, I'd like to produce these. And in our line of work, guys, most of the time you don't hear anything back. When you do hear something back, it's no. So in an industry where you hear no, it feels good to hear yes. And we produced some songs last year, and we're going to do a full album this year.
That's awesome.
You have a planned launch on that? When's that coming out?
It'll be out in July. We don't have a specific date yet. We're just, we're still in the studio and recording this stuff, but it will be out before football season, which is really when football season hits, Neal, it's 8 days a week. So.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So Crain and Co. They're the brothers. So the story we're going to tell today has some brothers in it. So I'm loving this whole correlation, and we're going to get into that.
The brother vibe.
Yeah, the brother vibe today. The three of you together are terrific. I just loved the way you guys look at sports and break things down. I mean, I always knew what a sports guy you were. I mean, how articulate you were about the sports arena. I think today in today's version of college football, we got a lot of aliens infiltrating that whole thing going on. I mean, negotiating NIL deals has gotten out of control. What's your take on all of that? I mean, this was, how did they stop this? I know you're probably tired of talking about this, but
no, not because I love college football and I love college athletics, and I wanted to play college football my entire life growing up, and it really didn't matter where. And I was grateful to be able to do so. And did I feel exploited at times? Yes, I did. And rolled my eyes, but I was grateful for the opportunity, and look where it's landed me now. So when I see a situation like just down the street here in Knoxville, Tennessee, where a kid's getting $2 million and somehow now that's not good enough and you're going to run away and transfer. Yes, it does bother me. And thank you for your words on our show. I would encourage you not to miss today's episode, and it comes out at 2 p.m. And I'm just saying that if you have any interest in college athletics and the state of it and name, image, and likeness and the transfer portal and where we're headed with college football, don't miss today's episode, because we have Jim Cavall coming on. It's one of the greatest interviews that we've done on this subject. And like I said, it'll be at 3 o'clock Eastern, 2 o'clock Central. But what I told him in that interview, I said, I feel like college football is losing its grip on the most important aspect that it has, and that is tradition. We're changing the postseason format every year at this point, right? A transfer portal that's completely out of control. The NCAA has no leadership, and they're just begging for Congress to get involved. Well, what good is that going to do? I mean, Congress can implement an antitrust exemption, but short of that, you still haven't solved the problem, because the people who are playing the game can't collectively bargain. And until you have that, they can sue for anything. I mean, our conversation eventually led all the way to, what if a kid wants to play for 12 years now? What if he wants to play college basketball or football for 12 years, and that's his source of income? He can file a lawsuit in a circuit court and say, you can't keep me. Or what if he doesn't want to go to class or go to school at all? How can the NCAA in the current state of athletics even tell a kid you have to go to class and get grades for you to play the sport?
Right.
We're almost at that point. And so Jim Cavall, I think he is positioning himself to be the head of whatever collective bargaining or whatever union is going to come in the near future. And so today's conversation is really insightful. But yeah, it is disheartening to see kids not have any idea of long-term financial success, weighing that against short-term gratification.
Wow.
And I think it's the big state of not just college athletics, but sort of the young men in our society and our culture these days.
Oh, absolutely. And I don't understand why there isn't, and forgive me, because I may be really dumb about this whole dynamics of this. Why isn't there incentives or some way of saying, listen, there's a cap, one, for the NIL. If you leave or you're going to go in the transfer portal, you don't get NIL if you go somewhere else. Why isn't there a way to just start doing it that way? Because it must be frustrating for the coaches as well. They're losing players and starting teams over.
The coaches are begging for something, right? They're having to assemble new rosters every single year. I mean, a basketball starting five will be completely new from one year to the next. What you're
Yeah, that's
saying, though,
insane.
again, how can what you're saying happen if the athletes don't have a say and can't collectively bargain? Again,
Right.
that's not the solution that I would like to see, but that's
I
just
like
the
it.
reality of the situation. And here's why. Because NIL stands for name, image, and likeness. And the worst thing that the NCAA ever did was get in the way of an athlete, an individual, being able to capitalize on their own likeness. For instance, it made no sense that David Cohn in 2006 couldn't go home to South Georgia and do a local car dealership commercial where they pay me $500. Is that much money? No, but it means a lot to an 18 to 22-year-old. Or why can't a kid in my math class sign an autograph for $50, but I can't sign one because I'm an athlete? When they said no to that, that's what led, I think, to the O'Bannon case that said, you're not allowed to keep me from profiting off my own likeness. And once those floodgates opened, programs started saying, hey, why don't we just pay who we think are the best players and the best recruits to come here? We'll pay them NIL, but really it's pay for play, only it's not. This situation with Tennessee's quarterback and Nico, you can't put any incentives on it. You can't say, we'll pay you more the better you do, like you can Aaron Rodgers or Tom Brady's contracts in the NFL. You can't say that because now you're entering a territory where you're combining their salary with their performance, but there's no collective bargaining agreement. So the agents and the kids are not going to have that. It's an absolute wild, wild west right now. And the open transfer portal is almost worse than the name, image, and likeness. Because if you didn't allow kids to just transfer at any moment, then you wouldn't be able to go anywhere, no matter what you're getting paid or not getting paid. In 2006 to 2010, right before we met, when I was playing college football, if I wanted to transfer to another Division I school, I had to sit out a year. Well, again, what if my coach left like he did? Lloyd Carr left. A new offense came in. Rich Rodriguez came in, which means I was not going to be the starting quarterback in that offense.
You came to play for that coach. Yeah.
That was not right. There needed to be a rule to make up for that. At the same time, the rule can't be, oh, well, you can leave whenever you want at any second, or else I would have run back home at 18 years old, because everyone is homesick. Everyone wants to quit, and we're encouraging that behavior.
That is absolutely crazy. And I remember prior to the whole NIL, when the doors started, the gates started to open, weren't they trying to figure out a way for colleges to start paying some of the athletes? They were not, and it wasn't for name, image, and likeness. It was or I forget how it went, but then it transferred from that to the NIL stuff, and then it just got out of hand. And I remember thinking, when that came out, I did a video on it, and it was about saying that parents, instead of paying for training for their kids to get really good and skilled, they're going to still do that, but now they're going to start paying agencies to drive their social media accounts up, because the higher their social media following is, the more money they can make, because the sponsors love the amount of followers they may bring along, to the game.
And the saddest part about it is the game, and not just the game, but all of these games, athletics writ large, these are supposed to be vehicles to teach our kids exactly the opposite, right? These are supposed to teach you values of punctuality and of discipline and of being accountable. And instead, we're going exactly the opposite way. And I say this as someone who would have loved to have gotten rich playing college football. I don't say this as someone who's like, oh, you don't value loyalty more than you value a paycheck. I want to get a bigger paycheck as I can, but I've never met anyone. I grew up in the deep South. I've never met anyone who said, I love college football because they're not paying those boys. No, these are pro free market people. If you have a value in society and you can get paid for it, you should be able to do that. At the same time, no one wants to see a kid play for 4 different high schools in 4 years and 5 different colleges in 5 years. And that's what I told Jim Cavall in our interview. And it makes me so sick that I wish an alien would abduct me sometimes.
It's coming, man. You got to hang in there.
Well, I have a question. Dave, this is for you. And I want you to know this is a safe space. When you met Neal in 2012 and you guys started working together, did he ever ask you to go fishing or go camping? It's a safe space. Okay.
Now that I think about it, he did ask me to go fishing at night and told me to bring my rod. And I think that there was anything strange about that. For some reason, that got postponed, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, it's always weird whenever Neal and I would go fishing, I would always like black out and not remember anything.
You
So
too?
I just, yeah, it's crazy. We have a lot to talk about, Dave.
You guys, you
I'm
really do.
sad.
Hey, Dave, we're going to get into the story in a second. And I love that you're talking about. You're so knowledgeable about all this stuff. There's a million things we could talk about. I mean, I just saw the episode with Connor Stallions and the whole deciphering the play calls and stuff, and that is just and that's where I learned that I didn't know that you were also doing the play calling. You were a decoy at some point on the sideline. Can you explain how that works for our audience? I don't know how many people are educated on this.
Well, thank you for watching that episode. Again, the conversation we had with Jim and the conversation we had with Connor Stallions, is funny you're bringing both those up because I think they're two of the best conversations we've ever had on this show. And it was kind of tough to get Connor Stallions because he was such a pariah year before last in Michigan's championship run with all the signal stealing headlines. And with my ties to the university, I formed a relationship with him. And so he agreed to come in here and do an interview as he was passing through town. We talked for an hour and a half straight. It was phenomenal because to me, I'm glad you used the term signal deciphering is really what it is, not sign stealing. And
Right.
what made me so mad about that whole thing is stealing a signal or deciphering a signal in college football is not against the rules, but that's what everyone led their headlines with. That's what
Sure.
ESPN led their headlines with. This minor rule in the rule books based off parity and performance between different levels of college programs is you're not allowed to go watch an opponent play in advance, which they said he was guilty of. We couldn't get into that in the interview because there's still an open NCAA investigation. But what I really wanted to talk to him about was signal deciphering, because I told him very rarely in my line of work was it more beneficial to be the signal guy than to be the starting quarterback. Right? Most of the time, if you're hosting a sports show, it's better to have thrown for 4,000 yards and won the Heisman Trophy. In this particular viral story, I was a signal guy at Michigan. I sent real signals. I sent dummy signals. We talked amongst ourselves about how can we be better at sending our signals and bluffing so that the other team can't be. This is 18 years ago, Neal. Like, this is a no. And even the watching your opponent play in advance, that's so silly. We were doing that in Pop Warner. I'd ask my dad after our football game, can we stay late to watch the other team play because we play them next week? But high-level college programs can't do it. It's all completely asinine. And even before I met Connor, I said one of a couple things is happening. Either one, this kid found a loophole, a gray area in the rules, and he is exploiting it, and he's getting hammered for it, but good for him. Or two, he thinks he's found a gray area, but he actually is still breaking the language, whatever the violation is, and that deserves some sort of punishment if you've broken a rule. What is the punishment that correlates with the action? Every single Saturday on a college football field, someone violates a rule. They hold, or they pull a face mask, or they jump off sides. You get 5, 10, 15 yards, you get penalized, you move on with the game. You don't cancel the whole season and say the team didn't win a championship. That's why all that made me angry. But listening to the way Connor Stallions was up there in the booth trying to decide which guys were sending the real signals, which one were sending the dummy signals. And another part of this that's quite amusing is to hear programs like the Buckeyes and some of Michigan's greatest rivals complain that Michigan knew their signals all this time, but somehow they never changed them. If you knew the team you were playing had your signals, which they claim, wouldn't you change them up? I don't get it.
Well, so there's strategy and there's cheating. And, if you got a guy who's smart enough to interpret what you're trying to call, that's not cheating, in my opinion.
So Dave, what is this signal meant? I saw you do that on the field. I saw some old game footage. Yeah. What does that, is that go long? Is that
no, that
fly
one,
by the side?
That one is Alien Take Me Up. Green Man.
Let's go. Let's go.
Everything's alien related today.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much I want to talk to you about. I don't want to keep too much time, but I know I always loved also how you break down plays on Crain & Co. You would break down plays or a breakdown play call. It just seems like, I used to just go, hey, you're going to go, you see this, guys, you're going to go straight out here and make a left, all right? And I'm going to hit you. You're going to go up here and go around to the right. I'm going to hit you over there.
You did it on your hand. We used to do it on our chest so the other team couldn't see us.
That's right, yeah.
I'm here, you're here, you're going up.
Dave, show us the high level. What's the high level play call?
Actually, I'm sitting in my chair here. I mean, this is my freshman year playbook right here. I mean, this is like this is week one install of Michigan football in 2006. And look, do some of these coaches make plays more complicated than they need to be? 100%.
Yeah.
There's sometimes they just, speaking to their own egos with these play calls. When I hear John Gruden rattle one off, sure. But also there is this aspect, especially playing quarterback at Michigan, that was, if you want to play here, that means you're getting ready to play in the NFL, which means you need to know what every single position is
True.
doing. That means
Right.
that the play call is 28 words long because we have to tag an ex receiver who may not know. Like, you can just go. I mean, I broke down one play with the Chiefs, and Coach Andy Reid says, "Look, we just call that play corn dog. If I just say the word corn dog, everyone knows what to do because it's and surprised that Andy Reid likes plays named after food. I respect it.
It is
Uh,
funny. Yeah. Yeah.
like, if you say that one word, everyone knows what to do. But you can't alter mid-game on who's going to do it if they're running a different
Sure.
defense than you thought, halftime adjustments, whatever. So that's where it gets into speed break Detroit, right side 300 box, Y stick H through or 54X slush. You're going into the huddle with multiple plays. Now, when Rich Rodriguez came in, we're running Ram Go. He's like, I don't have time for 28 word plays. We're trying to go up tempo, go fast, go no huddle, and run a no huddle spread offense. We want to gain an advantage in a different way, which is what Connor Stallions and I were talking about. Are we reading off a wristband? Are we sending in a full signal? Or are we just going up tempo and sort of running the same plays, but we're just going to be better conditioned than you are? But I thought that, Neal, I had all this experience. I sat in these quarterback rooms at the highest level for years and years and years. And like I said, I didn't make it to the NFL. I'm now a content creator. How can I use that? And so I started this segment called Huddle Up, where I take the biggest play from that weekend. I tell you what I think, what I would have called it, what I think they called it, or sometimes I actually have the real call because I know these coaches, and sometimes they'll actually give me the call that was called in the huddle. And I just tell people, I break it down. Here's what the formation is. That's the beginning. Here's what the pass protection is. That's for the offensive line. Here's the route concepts. And sometimes we'll tag a second play depending on if we're getting a different coverage. And so people really responded well to that segment. It gives me an opportunity in less than 2 minutes to communicate something to someone in a way that is very complex, but to where they can nod their head the next time they watch a game and say, "Oh, I do see the difference between cover 3 and cover 2."
It is fascinating. I love that you do that. I just love the show. And in fact, I really enjoyed, and I have a question, and then we're going to get on to the story. You guys, you and the boys went to the White House. They were honoring Ohio State, and were you guys going there? Were you, were you, were you guys going there to boycott them, or what was the deal with that? And while you were there, did you happen to see a room that said, UFO meeting room only in there? I want to know what's going on in there.
I saw that one door, and now I'm starting to think, yes, actually, that's where the UFO info is. I wasn't thinking about it before. Yeah, the PR team comes and says, "Congratulations, guys, you got invited to the White House." I'm like, no kidding. Donald Trump finally wants us to pitch DOSE, the Department of Sports Efficiency. Let's really get this thing going. We're getting somewhere in life, mama. I said, Department of Sports Efficiency. No more championship games on Monday night. No commercials in NFL Red Zone. No athletic directors on the playoff selection committee. I could go on and on for days on everything that's the platform. But then they say, but whoa, 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 but the bad news is, you're going to be a guest for the Buckeyes national championship celebration. So every rose has its thorn, so to speak. Bittersweet is definitely a phrase. I wish it could have been a year ago when Michigan went. But in all seriousness, though, for the president and his administration to invite us up for that, to partake in that, was the experience of a lifetime. We were on the South Lawn. The Buckeyes fans were very gracious. Even when I had a subtle protest with my Michigan ring, I did get to meet Coach Jim Tressel. And I just said, "Coach, you kicked our butts for 4 years when I was there. Coach Carr always spoke highly of you, though. I always had a lot of respect. I don't think they did Coach Jim Tressel right there at the end with the whole tattoo thing." And again, I call it fair. I call it the way I see it with Michigan and sign deciphering. I call it the way I see it with Jim Tressel and that whole tattoo gate thing. I don't think it was handled in the right way. And again, I don't know all the details, but a great honor for that. and then to cap it off, to be able to shake the president's hand. It was really cool, and I'll remember it forever.
And you got in that. Thank you for the Title IX.
Yeah,
What did you?
host Blaine, and we stuck our hands out. I said I kind of was playing to Trump's ego there a little bit, saying, okay, if I stick my hand out here, there's no way he's not going to come over. He's going to say, hey, people want to shake my hand. You know, they want to shake my hand. I'm going to go shake his hand. And you know, I was about to say something to that effect. I don't even know what I was about to say, but Blaine said, thank you for keeping men out of women's sports, as he's shaking both of our hands. And he goes, ha, that was an easy one.
That's so awesome. And then the last thing, I saw that the guys were introducing you as Elon Musk's cousin to some strangers out on the street in front of the White House.
This has been a running joke. Actually, the first time I ever heard it, I think I was on an airplane flying to one of your shoots, circa 2014, maybe something like that. Someone on that airplane stopped me and said, "Hey, does anyone tell you you look like Elon Musk?" And this is 10 years ago. This is before Tesla had taken off. This is before he's the richest man in the world.
Right.
It's like, oh, I never heard that before. Well, then I would hear it once in a while, every now and then. Well, now he's one of the most famous people on the planet, so I hear it all the time. My wife hates it. She said, "You don't look anything like Elon Musk. This is completely ridiculous." So I have to share. I have to look like the richest guy in the world without his bank account, and I have to share a name with a guy who threw a perfect game for the Yankees. I mean, life can certainly be worse. But yeah, the boys were having fun. I had to take multiple photos as Elon Musk's cousin with some of the Chinese delegation there at the White House.
That's hilarious. That's like in the movie History of the World, Mel Brooks' History of the World Part 1. He goes, "Your Highness, you look like the piss boy." I mean, it's like, thank you. Thank you so much.
All right, David, it's a pleasure to have you here today, man. Are you ready for our featured alien reporting?
Sell me on this thing.
All right. Oh, you got it. All right. Here's a quick reminder of how it works. I'm going to walk us through the full story as it was reported. There's no hype, no exaggeration. We're just going to talk about the documented facts. Then we're going to break it down. We're going to ask the questions that need asking and decide whether we think this one is mostly true or not quite. So let's get into the story of the Allagash abduction. The Allagash Wilderness Waterway is in northern Maine. It's a place so remote and vast, it's easy to believe you're the only soul for miles. It's surrounded by thick woods. It's got black still lakes and star-blanketed skies. It's the kind of place where, you know, people will go to get away from civilization and not to run into the unexplained, so to speak. So that's exactly what these 4 college students from Massachusetts thought when they set out on a canoe trip that would last them a lifetime. They were all art students at the Massachusetts College of Art in Boston, and they were looking for inspiration. They wanted a little solitude and just take a break from city life, so to speak.
He's taking notes. This is good.
I love it.
This is good.
I love it.
Dark, secluded fishing. Those are the key words.
Yeah, this is the kind of guest we want.
Art students, keywords, go.
Yeah. So here are their names. Get ready to write this down. Jim Weiner, Jack Weiner, the brothers. And then there's Chuck Rack and Charlie Fultz. And they were all in their early 20s. They were rugged enough for the outdoors, and they were ready for a long week of paddling through one of America's most untouched landscapes. They didn't know it yet, but this trip's going to end in one of the most terrifying and well-documented mass abduction claims ever recorded. All right, it's August 20th. It's 1976, and the group, they reached Eagle Lake. It's the remote stretch of the water deep in the Allagash Wilderness. So they're way in there. And the night was cool. It's silent. It's utterly still. You could hear the splash of a distant beaver tail or the whisper of pine trees in the wind. Just setting the stage. I just want to set the stage. That night, they decided to go night fishing in their canoe, and they were going to paddle out into the middle of the lake. And since it was pitch dark, they built a large bonfire on the shore to help guide them back.
Yeah.
All right. So
you need this. So dark out there, dude. It's pitch.
Oh, yeah.
Out there. Unless the moon is shining. Is the moon shining?
I said the moon was shining, yes.
Okay, I just want to make sure I didn't miss that.
Will you take notes, please? That night, okay, so here they are. They're heading out on the water. Sometime after they were out on the water, they noticed this very bright light in the sky. It's pulsating white and red orb hovering low above the tree line. And at first, they thought it was just a searchlight or a helicopter, but it was too quiet. It was too smooth. It was too controlled. And then it moves, And then the light begins to float closer. And that's when Charlie Foltz grabbed a high-powered flashlight and blinked an SOS signal toward it. I'm sure he was joking around, let's just do this.
Please take us.
That's right. And then the light responds, and it shifted position. And then without warning, it moves directly towards them really fast. Now panic starts to set in. Charlie actually, he screams out, "Paddle for your life." And they turn the canoe back toward the shore. And that's when the light envelops them. And the next thing they remember, they were standing on the shore watching the object lift away, drifting silently upward until it vanished into the stars. And then the fire they had built was nothing but embers by this point. It burned down to ash, but they were only out for what they thought was like 15 to 20 minutes. So the timeline didn't make sense to them. They were missing several hours. So shaken, confused, and disturbed, the group, they chalk it up to a strange sighting, one they didn't quite understand, but the experience lingered, it gnawed at them, and it would come back to haunt them in ways they never expected. Over the years, strange symptoms begin to surface. Jim Weiner, one of the brothers, he started suffering from seizures, and during one particularly intense episode, he had flashbacks of the lake, the light, and the non-human faces looking down at him. And then all four men began having nightmares, nearly identical ones. And their nightmares included being on a cold metal table, large-headed black-eyed beings standing over them, being unable to move while the beings probed, examined, and communicated without speaking.
Doesn't sound that bad.
No, I think you would love that.
It's like an average Saturday night for me.
In 1988, 12 years after the incident, Jim and Jack decided to undergo hypnotic regression therapy with Boston psychiatrist Dr. Anthony Constantino. So this was really bugging them to the point where they're seeking some help. And this is when things got darkly consistent. First off, under hypnosis, each man recounted the same sequences of events independently, mind you. So after the beam of light struck the canoe, they were levitated into the craft. This is what they're claiming is in this is
Jim and Jack, right? Jim and Jack.
Yes.
The brothers. Okay.
Yep. And then inside they were separated and taken to different rooms. They were each placed on a metallic table where beings with large heads, long limbs, and almond-shaped black eyes conducted medical procedures. And the beings communicated telepathically, expressing no emotion, just clinical curiosity. Samples of skin and blood and fluids were taken from them. Devices were inserted into the body. Some claim needles were inserted into the head or spine. So this is actually all four of them telling the story, from what I understand. One described seeing a holographic image of Earth and being shown a map of star systems. So when the hypnosis sessions were compared, the consistency was chilling. Each man had distinct yet eerily matching recollections, and they were not in the room together during these sessions. So the accounts were recorded completely separate. So here we are. The case now catches attention of Ray Fowler, who's a respected UFO researcher and field investigator for MUFON, which is the Mutual UFO Network. Fowler examined the transcripts, he interviewed the men, and determined that the case had multiple points of credibility. All four men stood by their story. None had profited from the event at the time. Their hypnotic regressions were consistent and included specific sensory details, difficult to fake. The story made national headlines. It appeared in books and later became the subject of several documentaries and television specials. Skeptics, they claim that it was a case of mass hallucination. I hate that term. When it's four people, I don't know. It's
mass hysteria. It's called mass hysteria.
Yeah. Well, they refer to it.
It happens, ways. But that's okay. Yeah.
A product of suggestibility under hypnosis, or simply an elaborate hoax. But here's the problem with that. The four men never once deviated from their accounts, and their stories remained unchanged for decades. One last thing. So Jim Weiner, he continued to experience these health issues. This is where they are now, related to his seizures. He remained vocal about the incident until his passing in 2019, so he died. Jack Weiner, Chuck Rack, and Charlie Foltz have all spoken publicly about the event in recent years and continue to stand by their experience. They've been featured in multiple documentaries, including Unsolved Mysteries and Alien Mysteries, and they've participated in numerous conferences. Now, the one thing, David, that we like to do is find out if there were any other reported incidences in the area at the time. There was just 4 days after the Allagash incident, residents of Saco and Biddeford reported multiple UFO sightings. They said that they saw these bright multicolored lights, red, green, and blue, moving silently across the sky. In Winsted, Connecticut, in the same year in summer, a group of 13 teenage campers and their counselor from Camp Delaware reported seeing a metallic silver saucer hovering over Blueberry Mountain during a daytime hike. In Worcester, Massachusetts, in December, the witnesses saw a UFO hovering over the city for over an hour on a clear, moonless night, and it was reported by multiple individuals. So that is the story that I have as reported. And now what I'd like to do is hand it over to you boys, and let's all discuss on whether we think this is a mostly true alien story or not, based on what we know. David, I don't know how many episodes you've tuned into, but even if you've tuned into one, you will realize that Andrew usually likes to break out facts that I may not have included in the report. So why don't I let you, Andrew, you want to throw something out that I've missed in this story?
Oh, wow. Yeah. So the one thing that you didn't mention, Neal, was that the guys weren't friends anymore.
But recently, right? Not
since 2000, like I'm going to say 2012 or so.
So many years
maybe
after.
the same time that you and Dave met. Weird how that happened.
Yeah.
Same coincidentals. There's coincidentals.
It is interesting.
Okay, so these guys, what I found fascinating was that it wasn't until 10 years later that they actually started saying that they were abducted. And they all four had the same story. It was mostly Jim and Jack that were pushing this thing. Charlie and Chuck were just like, yeah, it happened. It all happened. It all happened. They asked them if they had had any alcohol or drugs on their canoe trip. And they said no to the police. No, we didn't.
Yeah. But I would never bring alcohol or drugs on a camping trip with me.
Right. Well,
Ever.
yours is a different type of ether thing. So they were on Joan Rivers. They were actually on the Joan Rivers show. I don't know if you knew this or not, but on the Joan Rivers show, she asked them, were you guys drinking? And they said, no, we weren't drinking. We were actually smoking some marijuana.
I see where you're heading, and I just want to weigh in a little bit. I've smoked marijuana, and I've had mushrooms, and I've done pretty much everything. And whatever, what you put anything in front of me. But on a camping trip, I'm not going to have a hallucination of UFOs taking me and abducting me and doing all this. Also smoking marijuana.
I'm going to finish now. You also talked about how they didn't make any money, but they actually did, because they were paid by Unsolved Mysteries, and they were paid by all these documentary people, and they all had the same story. Well, here's where it gets fun. Chuck actually came back years later and said it never happened.
Nobody liked Chuck. Nobody likes Chuck.
They all made it up, is what he said. They all made it up, the prophet. Now, Jim, what you left out too is Jim was having seizures because Jim actually had MS.
Okay.
And Jim and Jack have opened an art studio where they're doing their paintings of the aliens. And the story has changed from the very beginning. They said that when they were on the table, they had this large needle that they used to stick in them, right?
Yep.
Well, in the paintings, and as the paintings went on, they turned it into what looks like a magic wand. Not a needle anymore, a magic wand that the aliens are supposed to...
It's artistic interpretation. That's okay.
They were raising money for Jim because the MS is a horrible disease, and it had basically debilitated him. But it all started with seizures. That's how they were able to diagnose that he had MS. They have not spoken since. Chuck, Charlie, and what's his name? Jack. Jack is still saying it happened. Charlie still says it happened. Chuck says it didn't happen.
Okay, but that's 3 out of the 4.
Well, yeah. Jim is gone, so he can't really say anymore. But before he died, he said that it was true. Yes. All right. But what's interesting is that the friendship didn't break up over that. It broke up over something else that we don't know. Now, your lights.
And that was years later that their friendship broke up.
Their friendship broke up. Right. So the lights that you say they saw, there was actually a hardware store in the town close by that was opening that had huge spotlights that they were showing up in the sky to announce the opening.
This was in 76.
Yes, to announce. That's what they used to do. I don't know.
Or if you had
Spotlights.
been smoking a little marijuana, let's say, would those
And the light
hardware
comes.
lights maybe appear like you were in Close Encounters of the Third Kind?
Exactly.
Okay, interesting. Interesting. Okay. Okay.
Right? None of them had a
Yep.
keyboard. I
Yep.
would say music is the key to this. Dave can relate to this. Music is the key. If they had a keyboard, they could have talked to them, right?
Yeah.
But they couldn't
Definitely.
talk to anybody. You know why? Because this is not a mostly true alien
Oh,
story.
you're weighing in
I'm
already.
weighing in right
You're
now.
weighing in already.
I think these guys were high on drugs. And the other thing too, the wood that they used in the fire, they tried to say that the wood that they used would have burned longer, but after they did an analysis of the wood and they talked about what type of wood they used, that wood burned up in like 20 to 30 minutes. So that idea of
So
them
they
using this,
had a forensic wood expert come out to the
they
campsite.
talked about they talked to them about the wood that they used, and then when they explained it, they talked to people. I don't know the whole thing, dude. I'm not a freaking
All right.
wood
Okay.
expert.
Okay.
I'm not. But I
hear
said
you.
the wood because you mentioned beavers early on in the story.
Yes, I'm right. But
So-
that's all you were thinking about at the
That's-
top of the story, the beavers.
Beavers and
The
wood.
whole
That's all I
story.
kept thinking about. Beavers
Okay.
and wood.
All
Beavers
right.
and wood. So
All right.
I'm going to say no.
All
This
right.
is not a
You're
mostly
saying it's
true
not a
alien
mostly true alien story.
And they
David,
lied.
based on the new information that Andrew has shared with us, why don't we hear your take on this story and
Yeah,
whether
we'll
you
just
think it's
say,
mostly
Wait,
true?
let's hear what he thought prior to my uncovering. That would be cool. And then see if that swayed him at all or not.
First of all, Andrew, very good work, my friend. Very good work in
Thank
the
you.
research department. I think we make a great team. Second off, yeah, like you said, in No Country for Old Men, I don't know if that's a true story, but it's true that it is a story, which sort of gets me to my first point here, Neal. Don't you ever use the words pulsating probe way in there and Wiener Brothers in the same sentence with me and expect me to believe this story. Do you understand me? Okay. Second, UFO. I'll tell you what really grinds my gears is this term UFO, which stands for unidentified flying object. That
Yes.
does not, in and of itself, imply extraterrestrial existence. I saw a UFO heading down here to do this interview today. It's a little dot in the sky. I think it's a plane. Is it a bird? It could be Superman. I don't know because it's unidentified. Doesn't necessarily mean it's extraterrestrial. And lastly, what's the term they use these days? These younger kids here, you've marginalized my existence, my lived
Yes.
experience. I don't want to do that. Who am I to say? I don't know. I'm just a kid from South Georgia. I don't know what you saw. Maybe you went up there, maybe you got probed. It's just fascinating to me that the stories are always kind of the same and they reflect the movies, some of these B horror movies where the ships are all metallic and you went up there and they played with your butt a little bit. I'm sorry to get graphic like that, but it's kind of
It's not
weird.
always bad.
When you tell me that the kids are art students, and there's nothing wrong with that, for God's sakes, I'm a filmmaker myself, but
Yep.
I know open and creative people can come up with a lot of great creative ideas, and that's how we get movies, and that's how we get stories like this, I believe.
Okay. All right. So with all of that information, you're saying that this is it mostly true? Not a mostly true alien story.
I say it's mostly true that these guys came up with a story and they told it to the world. That part's true.
And they were in a canoe.
Wow.
And
Okay.
I guarantee you there was a fire and a canoe. I bet that wasn't made up.
All right. So I got a question for you. So if you, Blaine, and Jake were out camping together, and
Well,
you
you know
guys
what?
came
It's
up with
funny. Go ahead. Hit me with the question.
you came out with this story, who would be the first to fold and tell the truth that it didn't happen?
First off, if you think I'd ever be caught dead camping with those two fools, you're out of your mind. Okay. Second off, it just so happens right now in the studio, Mr. Jake Crain has walked in. Jake, I know you'd have no idea what you're getting into, but
Yep.
I am on an alien podcast right now. Get over here.
No way.
Hey, Jake,
If the three
how
of
are you,
us-
man? It's a
Jake.
pleasure.
Good, man. Good.
I would-
Aliens, I love it.
I would never go camping with you. Okay. But
well,
if
not
we
after
went,
the last time.
exactly. You see, but if the three of us
Uh-oh.
went camping and we saw an alien spacecraft and we had some hypnosis later and they probed us a little bit, who's breaking first and saying this happened?
Well, if they probed us, Blaine would never tell. He would never want that out. I mean, I'm happily married as you are as well. It'd probably be me, but I heard a little bit of your story. To me, it just sounds like they had some really good weed. That's what it sounds like to me.
See, that's what Andrew said. But
Wow.
Neal, here's what you should do. You should get together with Jake and have him on a future episode of this podcast. I think Jake would be a little more sympathetic to some of your alien stories because he's a big believer.
No, they're real.
He's a big believer.
100%. You seen Jokic?
Wow.
This is my brother over here. This is awesome. I love it. Yeah, I would love to talk to you. But so if you went camping with David and you guys made up a UFO story to make money on it, and your brother was with you, which of you would break first and say it wasn't true?
Blaine.
Yeah,
Blaine would let the cat out of the bag. You and I would take it to the grave.
Yeah, well, Blaine would talk himself into a circle, and they'd be like, "Wait a minute, these statements contradict each other." But we already have. It's called Outer Space versus Inner Earth. You just
oh
heard
my
about it
goodness, yes. Blaine has a great idea for a movie that Jake and I are going to steal, so it actually gets produced. Outer Space versus Inner Earth. Okay, just wait. We can't tell you everything now.
Yeah.
We need a couple $100 million. We need Leo and Matt Damon.
Yeah, we got them. We got some calls out.
Yeah.
They haven't called us back.
I think what we should do is we should cast these two guys in this movie.
Look, let's do it.
Exactly.
Wait,
I'll
quickly,
do it,
I do
man.
want to ask what Andrew, you especially, because I heard you talking about alien movies on the other episode. What's your favorite alien film?
I love Aliens, the second Aliens film.
Okay.
That's probably my favorite, followed by Close Encounters.
You like Close Encounters a lot?
Yeah, I thought it was cool. I mean, I'm a huge Richard Dreyfuss fan, so
okay. You like Aliens more than you like Alien, than you like Ridley Scott's film?
yeah, I liked Aliens. It was just, I love the pace of it. Like that movie hit the ground running, and you were like, "Where is it going? Where is it going?" And then you saw this whole thing of, again, human beings trying to screw human beings over. And one of the best lines is given in that movie where it's either Bill Paxton, I think, says it, where these guys, you don't see these guys trying to screw each other over. The aliens had a purpose, like they served the queen and that's it. But here's Paul, what's his name? Paul Reiser's character trying to get Sigourney Weaver's character and the little girl impregnated so that he can get them back on the ship and get that weapon back. It was so like telling of how we deal with things as human beings. That's what I loved about the film.
Jim Cameron made a great movie. Shocker. How about you, Neal?
Yeah. Oh, my favorite is Battle Los Angeles.
Oh yeah.
Battle Los Angeles, man. That was the best alien film. I love it because it was just so realistic to me in terms of how they thought of the way an alien invasion would actually go down. And then how us as humans would, fight for survival. So
I haven't seen
it's really well done.
Yeah,
it was a
Battle Los
very
Angeles,
underrated movie. Very
Yeah.
underrated. 2011
Okay.
came out. What's yours?
My favorite is K-Pax. I love K-Pax with Kevin Spacey. And look, I
Yes.
love
Oh, yeah.
Independence Day. I love Independence Day as well. Fantastic movie,
Sure.
phenomenal. Like I could watch Independence Day every single year on the 4th of July. But K-Pax to me is one of those movies that I just loved from the first time I saw it. Part of it is Kevin Spacey truly is a genius at what he does. Say whatever you will about any
I
other
agree.
parts of his life. And I love that movie because to me, that's the way that this stuff would go down. If we're talking about different species that are so sophisticated that they're able to come here to Earth, that they have mastered light travel, they're going to be able to do the things that Kevin Spacey does in that movie, right?
Yes.
To be able to be here among us without, like I said before, the ship running out of gas or without coming and experimenting on us where we still know that it happened and we kind of tell a tale later, but that's the way that I think that it would happen. And above that, it's just a good film.
Yeah, for sure. And, you bring up a good point, and I say this to Andrew all the time. It's almost like we've created so many perceptions about aliens that there is, it leans towards them being completely dumb when it comes to their business of aliens coming here. And, I'm gonna go down to the middle of the woods in Alabama, and we're gonna take a guy who's just walking down the street, and we're gonna probe him and bring him back. For what purpose? I mean, why is it that it's this slow, creepy reveal of alien?
Well, like the guys going camping.
extraterrestrials.
Like, why take those 4 guys? Why probe them? Why not probe someone important?
Don't try to change my mind.
Why not get
Don't try to change.
why is it never the CEO of Coca-Cola who's like, listen, I got to tell y'all.
Yeah, shit. Listen.
These
Coke
guys
adds life, man.
beamed me up, Scotty.
All right, well, let me weigh in on this story. You two say it's not a mostly true alien story. Here's where sticking point for me
Uh-huh.
is that it took all these years later. I don't know if they were in communication. You know, it happened in 1976. Wasn't until how many years later was it, Andrew? Before
10
they started?
years. 10 years later, yeah, because
before
they were on
even
the
came out with it.
they were on the Joan Rivers show, I think, in like
Yeah.
90 or 88.
And then
or
they
something.
got all four of them out there to talk about it at that time. I wonder when the falling out was and what it was over for sure. But when you have like experts like a MUFON expert to come in and then he reads their hypnosis, you have a professional in the whole transgression stuff, and he is getting all these stories from these guys, and it's all very eerily the same. That's where I have a problem with saying that this didn't happen. I'm going to just get right to it. I think this is a mostly true alien story. I think this actually happened. They didn't make a lot of money. If they made any money, it was only a few $100. They didn't get rich on it. There was no reason for them to go back into the spotlight. If you say it was to raise money to help the brother Jack out, they probably didn't make much money on that, and that wasn't probably their intention. So I'm saying this is a mostly true alien story. So if you guys say it's not, yeah, but I'm probably right, and I bet our listeners probably think this is a mostly true alien story as well. And that's the Allagash Abductions. 4 guys, 1 canoe trip, and a set of experiences that still challenge everything we think we know about memory, trauma, and maybe contact. David, what's the part of the story that stuck with you the most?
Like I said, pulsating probe way in there, and Wiener Brothers. I'll never forget that. That's going to stick with me for quite a while, no doubt.
I want to hear that in a podcast. I want to hear that in one of your podcasts. I want you to say, pulsating lights and probing and wieners.
Yeah, secret signals to us.
Great little Easter egg. Don't miss the show for the next week. Maybe I just roll these out one every day. No, but what I'll remember most is this conversation, which thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it.
Can't thank you enough for this. I'm a big fan of Crain and Co. So, I will see that Easter egg, so make sure you put it in. So if you're listening out there, guys, and you haven't already, follow us, subscribe, and share the show. Let us know what you think. Is this one mostly true, or are you with David and Andrew, and it's not a mostly true alien story? We'll be back next week with another story that pushes the edges of what we think is possible. Until then, thanks for being here, and please be kind to the aliens when they get here, okay? They're coming. They're coming.
UFO sightings. Many Americans have wondered about the dangers of unknown objects.